I'm Alexander Taylor. It is indeed a pleasure to see everyone out this afternoon. Actually, we just started it's a little after 12, and it is indeed great to see everyone out today. You look great. Give yourselves a round of applause. Come to this Next up is our esteemed president of Richmond Crusade for Voters, Bernice Travis. Please give her a hand.
Well, good evening, I want on behalf of Crusade for Voters, I want to thank all of you.
Can't hear you.
Is this microphone working? Yeah. Can you hear me now? Okay, I'll speak louder. Really, I don't need it. But on behalf of the Crusade for Voters, I want to thank all of you for coming out this evening to our cannabis luncheon. This is the first time we've ever had a cannabis luncheon. We've had the luncheons before, but not a cannabis luncheon. And I see at least one or two candidates here. I'm looking around the room for some more, but I do see two. So this should be an interesting evening. I sit back and relax and enjoy yourself. We have some nice music here with Devo Dabney and Glenn Bailey. They are always with us. And again, I want to thank all of you. Is Fenton? Hi, old friend of mine, Fenton Blank. Good to see you, Fenton. Again, thank you all for coming out. And if you're not members of the Crusade for Voters, by all means, get an application from the front desk and join. We need all bodies. You know, the Crusade for Voters, our mission is to register voters and get out to vote. And with this climate we have here now in Washington and down at the State House, we do need to get people registered to vote. The Crusade for Voters last year attempted to get an early voting bill passed, and it was killed by what they call the Death Squad down in the General Assembly. I'm quite sure you know who the Death Squad is, but it was a group of 6 individuals, Republicans, who say they saw no need for early voting. And early voting is a very, very significant and a very good bill, because what it does is it allows a person to vote at least 30 days before the election, which means that if it's raining or snowing on election day in November, you don't have to worry about going to the polls because you had the opportunity to vote early. So we're going to put that bill back on the table again this year. Last year, Lamont Bagby sponsored that bill on behalf of the Crusade for Voters, and so we're going to put it back out there again. And we want you all to come out and help lobby and help fight to get that bill passed. And then there's some other bills and issues that we're going to look at in terms of criminal justice and education and housing and evictions and really prison reform and criminalization. So we need you all to come on out and support the Crusade for Voters, and by all means get an application and join. The membership is very, very cheap, $25 a year. You can't beat that. All right? And enjoy yourselves and enjoy the music. Thank you.
Next we have Minister Gene Braxton, Associate Minister, Cedar Street Baptist Church.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before I offer the blessing, I'd like to officially welcome you to Cedar Street Baptist Church of God on behalf of our pastor, Dr. Anthony Michael Chandler, and our First Lady, Dr. Talisha Chandler. In their absence, I say welcome to you. We're delighted that you've selected Cedar Street to host your first luncheon. We hope that this will be the first of many. Let us bow for a blessing. Eternal God, we thank you for this day, one which we've never seen before. We thank you for the opportunity to come out and work on this program, God. We now ask that you would bless the food that's been prepared for the nourishment of our body, that you would bless the hands that are prepared, God. We thank you for this opportunity. We give you all the glory, all the honor, and all the praise. Amen.
Amen. musical artist, another wonderful artist. Okay, as you can see, we're about ready to proceed. We have one senator and a candidate running against this senator, and we have a new candidate, Garrison Coward, running for the 68th House candidate. In that order is Senator Rosalind Dance, 16th Senate District candidate. We've got Mr. Joe Morrissey, 16th Senate District candidate, and Mr. Garrison Coward, 68th House candidate. Let's give them a round of applause. Each candidate will be given 5 minutes, and during those 5 minutes, ma'am and sirs, we would like to hear more about your background, who you are, why you're running, what are your past accomplishments, and what you will accomplish if elected to the office that you're running for. With that, of course, ladies first. Senator Dance.
Good afternoon. And yes, I am Rosalind Dance. I am the state senator for the 16th senatorial district that covers Richmond, Petersburg, Hopewell, and the counties of Prince George, Dinwiddie, and Chesterfield, where I was born. I have always lived in the 16th senatorial district, having been born in Chesterfield County and raised in Petersburg, where my parents were from. And I have rose from the position as far as my background. Professional-wise, I started as a nurse's aide, and I was an LPN and an RN, and I rose to the level of facility director at Southside Virginia Training Center on my professional side. On the side of politics, which I've been in for the last 26 years, I would say I started as a city council person at the, and I was invited to join, or really encouraged by then Ezekiel Howard, a union man, that told me I should run for city council. I was sworn in, and I immediately became appointed to serve as a mayor of the city of Petersburg. Never ever served, but they saw something in me, and they chose me to be their leader, and they continue to choose me every 2 years for the 6 years, 12 years that I, 6 terms and 12 years that I served as a member of the Petersburg City Council. Then there was a preacher, the Reverend Dr. Robert Diggs from Tabernacle Baptist Church in Petersburg, who came and encouraged me to run for the House of Delegates. I didn't just run, he asked, and I said, if God told you to have me run, did he say I was going to win? He smiled, but I won. In the position of the senator, I was on a cruise, and I was told that the Senator Henry Marsh was retiring, and I didn't believe it, so they had to blow up my cell phone with text to verify from a Washington Post that said that that pioneer was sitting down. And so when I landed, the calls were coming in, and when I got back to Virginia, there was support, and so I ran. But it wasn't just running, because there was a primary and then an election just to fill that term of Senator Henry Marsh, and then another primary and an election to get my 4-year term. And in that position, I was able to serve, and I'll just give you a reason. For the House, I went in as a new person, and because of my track record and my experience on the side of my professional side, having been a facility director, managing more than $50 million budget, then I was appointed on my first assignment to the House Appropriations. That's the Budget Committee. Because of my background in healthcare, I was also appointed to Health and Human Services because I know all about healthcare. As I said, on that side, I started as a nurse's aide. I knew it at all levels. So I moved from that to the Senate. First time they had to find me out, but after 1 year, I am now on finance. I'm only one of 2 African Americans that serve on 14 of the 40 members of the Senate. I am one of 2. The other is Senator Louise Lucas, whom I respect, and this is 2 of us, and we are the voice for people that look like us. I also serve on commerce and labor as far as economic development, but it's also about jobs, and it's about the people. So I get to be that balance person for that. I serve on agriculture, conservation, economic development. In those areas, I deal with both rural and cities, because I have 3 counties and 3 cities. That's what I do. I serve currently as a chair of the Joint Health Care Commission, and that is a commission that looks at, and that says my members in the House and the Senate, Democrat and Republicans, unanimously said I could lead that, because we look at the studies of what's happening in Virginia, the nation, internationally, to provide the best quality health care for the people of Virginia, and that's what I do. When it comes to Joint Health Insurance Commission, and as you heard about affordable care and all of that, I am the only, not only African American, but the only member that from our House Democratic caucus that gets to serve on that commission. Again, because of my background, and I'm a voice when it comes to health care. So what I will tell you that I have 4 major assignments, but under that I also have additional assignments. And with that work, my body of work, I got the endorsement from the Virginia Education Association this year already. They don't normally give it to in primaries, but I received that because I carried what they said was very important, a bill that says that underserved school districts need more help. They do. We know that. So I was able to convince my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, the money committees, and then you know everybody has to vote at the end, to give $25 million to make a difference. That's just a start. We need so much more. But I have risen to the level of expertise and experience that I believe in working across the aisle, whatever it takes to make sure that I'm doing all I can to help us with not a handout, but a hand up, and an opportunity for a future that we've not had before. So that's where we are right now. School counselors, the educators said we need that. I carried the bill, and I also carried the money amendment that say you can't do it without money. Did I get enough? No. I wanted 36 million. I tried to get 24 million, but I got 12 million. But I need to remind you, I am of the minority party, and you have to get enough votes from the majority party to make it happen. But I believe that we can respectfully disagree, and we can find those commonalities enough people to make sure that we keep Virginia moving forward, and not just for some people, but all of the people. And that's what I do. I believe in social justice and criminal justice, and they run hand in hand because of your economic status. You have to plea bargain. But if you got the money, you can walk out free. Should that happen? I don't think so. And I think it starts with the quality of jobs. And that's why I heard the minimum wage, that $7.25 is not enough. I started out as a dishwasher, and I can tell you it's not enough. You can work 1, 2, 3 jobs and not be able to take care of your family. So sometimes you lose hope and you find yourself on the wrong side. But I fought this year for minimum wage, have been fighting for it. This year got it from the subcommittee to the full committee, first, second, third reading. That's why I lost, because we were looking too good, and this is election year. And I think they thought that was just too much power for Democrats to have, but I got it there. An equal rights amendment for women, I was number 2 on that bill, because we know good and well as women that we're more than equal. We have them guys, okay? So the respect should be there anyway. I served second, and I did my job, and on the end of the day, it passed the Senate. Lost it by 1 in the House. It will be back again. But those are the quality of work. But then, most importantly, my cherry on the top is Central State Hospital, a facility that was our first in the nation for mental health services for African Americans. So you know it's antiquated. And that's something that I fought for. But on finance, they got tired of me just fussing, and they put me on the capital outlay so I could be at the table where decisions are made. And I got it in, and they knocked it out before the session ended. But I told them, that's all right, I'm going to talk to the governor, and I'm going to work with these conferees. And you know what? When veto session came around, it was back in with the 5 years instead of the 7 years that I thought was better. And $315 million, and that's not hate. And I am still of the minority party, but I'm going to tell you something. You know what I got going for me? I'm like Job, if you know what I'm talking about. I'm like Nehemiah. And I'm surely like Daniel, because I'll come into the lion's den, and this could have been the lion's den today, but I'm here because it's not about me, it's about the people that I represent. It's about the legacy, it's about the ancestry, it's about people that might not even like me. But I will tell you, I look at Senator Henry Marsh, and he is a trailblazer, and he helped build this particular district. He helped build this district, and it's built for minorities. It really is, truly is built for minorities, because our ancestors fought for us to have the right to have a voice. And now they have 21 African Americans that serve in the Virginia General Assembly, and we are a force to be reckoned with, because every bill I addressed, every budget amendment, they were with me. You don't get anything by yourself. You have to be able to work with people. You have to work with them respectfully. It's not boxing glove, it's not fighting. Sometimes it's swallowing when you want to say something, because that's what it takes at the end of the day to build relationships. And my relationships with both sides of the aisle, Wednesday and Thursday, it starts with Bible study. And that's everybody at the table that wants to be at the table, because I want them to know I know God, and I stand proudly. I don't hide it. That's who I am. They know me on both sides of the aisle, and that's what I do. For $18,000 a year, that's what I do, because I retired with a good salary, y'all. But I choose to do. God supports me, my folks support me, and they're here, and I know my time is probably up, but I thank Senator Mark Warner, because he know I don't have money like that, but he let us have his table over here. Y'all stand up, because they've been traveling with me ever since I was the mayor, my legislative aide, everybody. These people know me. They speak for me when we knock on every door, and we will knock until the polls close on June the 11th. Let's get it straight. And you know what? I'm in it to win it, and I got God on my side. Thank you.
Following our esteemed senator is a new candidate. It just happens to be a friend of my son, both went to Hampton-Sydney College. Let's give it up for Mr. Garrison Coward.
Hey, good afternoon, folks. How are you? Good. Can you tell that it's campaign season? I'll be quick. Linda told me that I should keep it short, so I just wanted to introduce myself. And first, thank you guys for all of the hard work that you've been doing, not only this year, but in the past years and the previous years. My name is Garrison Coward. I'm from Henrico County, born and raised. As Mr. Taylor said, I was educated in the Henrico County Public School Systems at Tucker High School, and then I got a degree in economics from Hampton-Sydney College, followed by a master's degree in public policy and political management from the George Washington University, and now I'm getting my MBA from the George Washington University as well. I'm running because I believe in equal opportunities and not equal outcomes. I truly do believe that it's time for a new generation of folks to step up to the plate and fix and right a ship that unfortunately has gone pretty astray. What does that mean? That means that I believe that each child, regardless of their zip code, deserves a shot at a solid education. I believe that teachers deserve better pay. I truly do. I think the only way that you can fix our school systems, especially here in Richmond, if you want to retain talent, you need to make sure that we've got talented teachers who are out there educating the next generation. Economic growth. I believe that we should have jobs for everybody. And again, equal opportunity means that everybody, every child, every person should have an opportunity to go out and earn a decent wage and also earn a decent living in their respective fields. That is something that we need to do a better job of in regional cooperation on the state level and also on local levels as well. And finally, I truly do believe that we need to implement new technologies into our government. I think too many of our systems are antiquated. I truly do believe that we need to update some of those systems to make folks' lives a little bit better. So I would encourage each and every one of you, I know you came out in 2017 for previous delegate Manoli Lupasi. Please look into my background. My telephone number is 804-513-6885. That's 804-513-6885. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please do let me know. And you can also visit my website. It's garrisoncoward.com. That's garrisoncoward.com. Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate your support.
I see why my son is so proud of me. I am too. Next up, I'm just glad as a prosecutor, I never had to go against him as a defense attorney. Mr. Morrissey's introduction, like our senator, they've been around Richmond many, many years. Next up, Mr. Joe Morrissey.
Thank you, Alex, and I want to thank both of the candidates that are up at the head desk. Senator Dance, thank you for your comments, thank you for your enthusiasm. Garrison, thank you for entering the race. I've always said that the bar is raised when more people enter politics and challenge folks, and appreciate you doing that. A few more thanks. I want to thank the folks here at Cedar Street Baptist Church, particularly the wait staff that gave us an exceptional lunch. Can we thank them? The folks that also need a great deal of thanks are the ones that are hosting this event, the Richmond Crusade for Voters. The Richmond Crusade for Voters is the oldest black voting organization in the state. And every year, without fail, they set an agenda and they bring people along. It is the Richmond Crusade for Voters that spearheaded the education referendum in this school, in this city, that passed with over 85% of the vote. 139 legislators followed them. We appreciate Bernice and your board for doing that. Criminal justice reform, prisoner reentry, second chance programs, you have always been in the forefront, and we are grateful. Dr. Chandler runs a wonderful, wonderful organization here, both Dr. Chandler and the First Lady. I commented earlier when I was walking to the restroom that it's like a little city here. I mean, there's the sanctuary, of course, there's the fellowship hall, but there's clothing offices and administrative offices. I mean, there's even a huge room to hold a debate in if one were inclined to do that. It is a city within a city, and we thank Cedar Street for putting this us up today. Also, I want to give you a little idea about myself. I have been, as Alex said, in the city of Richmond for 30 years. A lot of people don't know this. I'm a former teacher. I taught high school government, U.S. and Virginia history, coached the wrestling team. The hardest job I've ever had in my life was a teacher and a coach. The hardest job. You go from 7:30 in the morning until 7:30 at night, and then you start preparing for the next day. I served on the Education Committee in the House of Delegates for just almost 9 years. And I am mindful of how hard those teachers work and how deserving they are. And when I heard folks come in and they were asking for money for the teachers, I said, let's not forget who keeps these schools running. The teachers' aides, the people that keep the buses serviced, that drive the buses, our staff that cleans the schools. I am always mindful that they too need a raise. Now, let me tell you why I'm running. There's 3 things that affect the 16th Senate District. More than anything else. I started 114 days ago, and I've gone door to door for 113 days. I did not go Easter Sunday. I've listened to the people. 3 things are at the top of my agenda now, and if I'm honored by the voters of the 16th Senate District to serve in the General Assembly. Schools, businesses, and infrastructure. Let's be clear. When families are considering moving into a city, the first thing they ask their realtors are the following: how are the schools? That's the first thing. Right now in in Petersburg, there are an average 50, 60 new teachers a year. Here's what's happening. A teacher matriculates from Virginia State University, gets a first-year job there, and then after that first year of training, moves on to another jurisdiction. Here's a thought. Let's incentivize those teachers to stay there. Come into a rural or an urban jurisdiction. Come into an urban or rural jurisdiction, stay for 5 years, and we will forgive your student loans. That will keep the teachers there, and let's also allow them to build roots. Give them sub subprime loans to buy a home in that jurisdiction. If we do that, then the school gets better. The SOL scores improve and more families will move in. And when they move in, businesses will follow. There is a problem in the 16th Senate District, particularly in Petersburg, with businesses leaving. Around us, in Hopewell, they have added businesses over the last 5 years. You go down Broadway, 12 new businesses on Broadway. Chesterfield County, Richmond, Dinwiddie, they are adding businesses. Petersburg has lost 45 businesses in the last 5 years. On the iconic Sycamore Street, 28 storefronts are empty. We need to get those businesses there. How do we do it? We need to take advantage of the federal legislation, 2017 Federal Jobs Cut and Tax Cuts Act, which creates opportunity zones. It's not being taken advantage of in the 16th District. It will when I become your next state senator. There's other things that we can do too. The housing stock in some areas of the 16th is disgraceful. Now, if you walk out the streets right here in Churchill, you will not find a street that doesn't have 2 or 3 houses undergoing renovation right now. A dozen more have already been undergoing renovation. We're not having that same type of stock renovation in other parts of the 16th District, in South Richmond, in Petersburg, and parts of Hopewell. We need to improve that housing stock. And when we do it, we need to make sure that folks that have been there for 30 and 40 years aren't pushed out. Gentrification will be the next biggest problem that the General Assembly tackles. How about this? If a family has been there for 30 or 40 years, at the very minimum, freeze their real estate taxes so they aren't pushed out. I will introduce legislation to do just that. Folks, when I set my mind to something, I try to accomplish it. When I set my mind to this race, it wasn't because there was any personality problems. It was because I think I can make the 16th Senate District better for your families, your children, and my children. There are 3 generations of my family here right now. The person that makes me run in the morning, my wife, Myrna, her mother, Deirdre, and her grandmother and namesake, Myrna Warren. Only because Bella couldn't be here, we would have had 4 generations. I am running for the state senate because I believe I can make our lives better, and that's what I intend to do. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here this morning.
Okay, we have a very distinguished gentleman with cards in his hand. If you have a question, there he is standing up. Please write your question. You already have some?
Speaking to the mic.
Okay, oh, I'm sorry. If you have a question, please write it down on the card that he has for one of these wonderful candidates. And while I'm here, we've often heard Senator Marsh's name mentioned. He's actually here, sitting at that table to my left, your right. Let's give Senator Marsh a hand. That's right, he's deserving of a standing ovation for all that he has done for our division. First question for our candidates. What is your plan to address preschool programs for all families, poverty, and those that are not in poverty? Starting with Senator Davis.
Since I'm going first, I want to make sure I got exactly what you said. Did you read the question?
Oh, yes, ma'am. What is your plan to address preschool programs for all families, poverty, and those not in poverty?
Okay. Number 1, I will tell you that you need to know how we're structured and how I take my directions from the education, the people that are experts in that area, they would tell me the best way that they would have me do that. And then it's my job to get that bill through the subcommittee, the full committee, first, second, third reading on the floor of the Senate, and then get a partner in the House, because they wouldn't have me do that all by myself to work with it. But it starts from the administration, who gets the first tack at that. When they present their, though there's the budget, they have a language in it as well that we start in December of this year. But we are all aware of the needs for pre-K, because that's where it starts. A lot of time, the problem with our children, and you said all, and you're right, but I still have to go back to those people that look like me, because when you start, you've got a door right there. There are 5 steps before you get to that door, because they have not been given the basics. And that's what we do on the finance side, is even though we're not on, might not be on education, any bill, any policy will come to us, and then it's a price of can we afford it. But that is a priority for me, should be a priority for everybody, because the children, that's what the foundation must be for us. When we talk about the Commonwealth, is how we're going to become better. It starts from that foundation. So I would tell you that based on what is presented to me from the education sources, through the superintendent, through might be the State Board of Education, then that's what I would be happy to carry, a bill that says that we would do X, and they are the experts, and they tell me what they want, and then it's my job to articulate that message to my colleagues and have them there in the subcommittee and the full committee. Past that, I have to defend it on the floor of the Senate. But that's where it's not that I decide I know what's best. It's always that I must hear from, we call it the special interest groups, we call it the industry when we're dealing with business, but they know best. I'm not going to operate this, and no bill is any good unless it really meets the needs of the people that's got to execute it. So I am a lawmaker, and my job is to be a voice for them and articulate what they think is best. Is it a priority for me? Yes, it is. But that's what I would do to get it implemented, and it is a priority.
Thank you, Senator.
Alex, let me try to address that question directly. I'll introduce legislation in my first year that will make it a law that pre-K education in every zip code from Charles City County to Lee County in Virginia is the law of the land. Additionally, in the state constitution, we have it required that everybody is entitled to an education. Everybody should be entitled to an education vis-a-vis our state constitution from pre-K forward. I'll introduce legislation for a constitutional amendment to do just that.
On the state level, as a lawmaker, I would bring everybody to the table as well and really figure out what it is that each locality would need for their particular jurisdiction. It would be hard to say that there would be a one-size-fits-all solution to this problem, but at the end of the day, each child does deserve a pre-K education.
Okay, don't go anywhere.
Okay.
This next question, Mr. Morrissey, you've actually addressed this issue. I'm going to give you an opportunity to address it while you're up there, and then have Senator Dance address it. How do you plan to retain teachers in Richmond and Petersburg?
Absolutely. So exactly what both the senator and the former delegate has said. You know, we need to make sure that we are retaining top talent. I'll give you a personal anecdote. My sister, she graduated from Barry University down in Miami. She graduated with a great GPA, and she wanted to come to Richmond City to teach school children Spanish. Well, she got in there and she had to deal with so many problems from the bureaucracy of the administration on down, and also her pay just wasn't enough for her to continue to do what she wanted to do. Now this past year, the General Assembly, thankfully, they increased teacher pay by 5%, and I think that we need to do a little bit more, doing a little bit more digging into the budget to figure out where we can find some extra dollars for our teachers, for sure. Sorry.
Every year we try to address what is best, the best incentive to ensure that we get quality teachers in our schools. We have already done things as incentives as far as looking at if you live in this area, then their housing. We've addressed housing as a incentive. If you live here, then we can give you like reduced cost on the housing. We give you extra funds if you agree to, if you work in a school system that is considered to be a high risk. These are things that are already being done. But the thing of it is this. I can easily just spout off and be the words of wisdom and say, this is how I would do it. But I will tell you, it is not effective if it really does not meet what it is that the teacher says is important to them. So I can think it's important, but that's not my role as a lawmaker to make sure that I am hearing from those who are actually the ones that we want to recruit. What is important to them? Because I say I'm going to give them X, Y, Z. Is that important to them? When they tell me what they want, and those are the things that we deal with every legislative session. In fact, there are bill signings that I'm going to be participating in Petersburg that's again helping teachers. And it's because this is something that they say is important. Sometimes it is paying off their loans. They say we're going to, if there was a Virginia school, pay off those loans as an incentive to say that for every year you work, then that's a reduction on the loan, your school loan, and that's a big deal. Well, those are policies and procedures and incentives that we already have. They do it sometime at the local level, but if they need it, we have this rule that says, the Dillon rule says that no policy can be implemented at the local level unless it's first been made into law at the state level. But again, it's always hearing from those who are involved, that specialty group, that industry, what do they see as important? And that's what we do. We don't just act like we are dictators and we know best. Because father and mother don't always know best. It still must come from the people that we want this to see as an incentive that's going to make them do whatever it is we need from them. And I want to tell you this, that in my position on finance, I want you to know when people was talking about the schools and what's happening, did they tell you that after 40 years, because we were able, and I say our partner, because you know you work together, the delegate, Erin, who's not here, and she's on appropriations. So we got Petersburg locked down as far as where the money comes from. That I want you to know that after 5 years of getting extra money, because the superintendent cost more than the city of Petersburg could afford, but we were able to get the extra money to match that salary to make sure we had a qualified superintendent and all the support staff that he needed to bring us up. And guess what? We are now proud to say in Petersburg, all of our schools are accredited. Now, I won't tell you they're all fully accredited. Some are with warning, but after 5 years, yes. And after 5 years of, we don't have all this industry that's talking about. Well, how about 5 years ago, we were $19 million in the hole. But yes, my partner, Delegate Erin and I, through the finance and appropriations, we were able to help subsidize, standardize our Petersburg system. And guess what? We went from real estate, you know, underwater, to now we're at the point that Standards & Poor's says we're moving in the right direction. That $19 million debt no longer on the books, and in fact, the budget that they're presenting now has about $1 million plus in the black. So let's get the facts right. First, we had to rise from under the water. How can we compete if we're $19 million in the hole? But that's what we do. We don't get to talk about this, but now I got to tell you what I've been doing, okay? But that's what we've done for Petersburg. Don't give me, when I was a mayor, I did mayor stuff. And I can tell you that's mayor stuff you're hearing. But as a senator, I do senatorial stuff. Thank you.
Well, we have our last question for the evening, and ironically, it also deals with education. I stand corrected. We'll have two more, this and one more. How will your administration address the cost per classroom in public education versus the cost per student metric that is currently used? Could we very briefly get an answer to that question?
With the emphasis on brevity.
Yes, sir.
Okay. There is a formula that is used on how much the state and the locality pays for students. For example, if you're in Loudoun County or Fairfax County, the local jurisdiction will pay much more than the state. It's just the way it works because they use a complicated formula that involves real estate taxes, the GNP for the area, the income determinator for that particular body politic. Here's the problem in a nutshell. There are some jurisdictions like Richmond that have much more difficult problems to address. There are children with special needs in Richmond and in Hopewell and in Petersburg. Those special needs children cost a lot more. That formula that the General Assembly has used for many, many years doesn't address that particular problem. So that you may have, in a jurisdiction contiguous with Petersburg, Colonial Heights, you may have a public school system that seems and appears to be thriving. And it is because it doesn't have those special needs children that they have in neighboring Petersburg. Same way in Richmond. There are children that need, because of their, some of the deficits, we need to put more money into it. So the answer is a simple one. Let's change the formula at the State House so that more money can flow to those urban and some rural jurisdictions that simply need more resources for their children. It's that simple.
Excuse me. Oh, sure, absolutely, go for it.
On that one, I would say he got that right. And guess what? That's why the Virginia Education Association endorsed me, because they said that my budget amendment, that $25 million that I was able to get, when people say add on at risk, they don't understand what that means, but he just explained it to you. That's exactly why I asked for that $25 million. I really wanted $36 million, right? But I got to get my colleagues on the other side of the minority party to agree with that. But $25 million, as I mentioned earlier, is just a start, because we still have, it's more than just Democrats and Republicans when it comes to education. Northern Virginia is like a state unto itself, and they say they give all of their money back to the South, you know, because they're like in the North. And so it's hard, even when we try to do all that we need to do as far as do the complicatedness of getting it all straight. And you know, I couldn't go that deep. So I asked for just give us the money. And that $25 million says we give extra money to Richmond, to Petersburg, to Hopewell, to those particular schools, right, that are already underserved, and they have these addedness problems of behaviors and all those that have to be addressed. So yes, we were able to get some more money. Not enough, but that's where we start.
Thank you. I'll be very quick. Look, I don't disagree with anything that either one of the other candidates said. I do believe that we do need to audit we need to make it mandatory that each school system is audited before state money flows down into each of those localities. This is a situation where, as a previous candidate has said, each locality has different needs, and we need to make sure that we're addressing those needs appropriately.
Okay, one last question.
No more. After that.
And this is it. I promise. What is the current proposal for prison reform? What is basically your current proposal for prison reform?
In the federal system, Alex, when individuals are getting ready to be released from federal custody, there is a transitional phase, often into a halfway house, often for 6 months. Prior to going into that halfway house, they have to have employment locked up, they have to have residential accommodations settled. Not so in Virginia. Not too far from us, if you leave the Richmond City Jail, you'll have people that will walk out, they'll give them a $20 check, and they'll walk up Fairfield and they'll cash the check right there, and there's nothing. There's nothing after that. There's no safety net. The first thing that I would do for prison reform in Virginia, the thing that would make the most sense, is the following. 6 months before they leave the Department of Corrections, create a halfway house model so that there would be some transition into the reentry, into society. The second thing is this. I'm a huge proponent of more drug courts in the Commonwealth, so they never enter DOC. It costs $42,000 a year to incarcerate somebody. You have a drug problem and you put them in prison. After 2 years, you've spent $42,000 a year, but they still have the monkey of addiction on their back. Drug courts cost $6,000 a year, and the people that go through drug courts are successful, and the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the pudding. The recidivism rate is 62%. The recidivism rate for people that complete a drug program, 6%. More drug courts under Senator Morrissey. Thank you.
I think I mentioned that social, criminal justice, I love working to help people. I believe in second chances. But one of the things I did back when I was in the House is I put in a piece of legislation because I said where we are now, the people's hands was tied behind the back. You let them go across the seal, but you don't let them have a driver's license. They can't get to a job, and you say if they don't have a job and they don't have a place to live, you know, you're gonna put them back? What's gonna happen with that? So I put in a piece of legislation that said that they should be able to use their driver's license to get back and forth to work, okay? And that law is on the books. Google it, you can find it. And that was the first step. But not only that, my healthcare side said that a lot of them had mental health problems that might have been what you call balanced out while they were in there, but then you put them on the street. They don't have any medical records. They go right back to where they come from. They don't know where to get help. So I said 6 months before you go out, that you must have their medical records ready and prepared for them to transition. And you know I work with Community Services Board, so you know that's what we do. That one's on the books too, look for it. But I'll tell you this, I met Mr. Harold Clark. Y'all might not know who he is, but he is the director for the Department of Corrections, okay? And what he did is when he came to Virginia, the sheriff, Vanessa Crawford of Petersburg, made me go to a workshop with him. And he talked about how he was going to have to change the culture from the inside out to improve the possibilities of preventing people to have to go back, to reduce the recidivism rate. And I said, he's talking stuff, but I don't know what he's going to do, but I'm going to support everything that he has, right? And my record will show I supported everything that he presented as policies, either whether I was carrying it or not. And guess what? Did you know that in the last 3 years, Virginia has the lowest recidivism rate in the nation? Did you know that? And you live here. But that's what Harold Clark is to the Department of Corrections, as that other Clark that was in New York was to education. He has made a difference, and that's the road that we're taking. There's a lot of work to be done, but what they've done, Chesterfield County is leading the way as far as not putting people in jail. Drug courts is one of them, but they have diversion programs that encourages people to work, that let people work instead of going to jail, that there are house arrests. And you know what? In Prince George County, they want to ask me, could I make the other localities pay for them putting people in jail? And I said no, because Chesterfield County reduced theirs by 34% by not locking up. And who do you think get locked up? They look like me. I think they look like you too. But when they stopped it, 34%, I just chuckle at Prince George County, and I'm talking, they can see me. But I said, why don't you do what Chesterfield is doing? And you put less of us in jail. Give us another option. They're using drug courts because localities can do that already. But the state does supplemental money, and I'm looking at doing some more supplemental money since I'm on appropriations where it happens. And since come November, we're planning on being in charge, and then we can really make things happen. If I can get 68% of my stuff done, when I have to do every bill I start from zero to get to the majority because we don't have it on our side, think of what I can do if my hands are not tied behind my backs and we are the majority. Because I work with people around issues and providing the desired outcome for my bosses. And they're the people of the 16th Senatorial District. Thank you.
Let's give all our candidates a wonderful round of applause. Next up, Richard Williams, Chair of this event.
Thank you.
Let's give our candidates another round of applause, please. I would like to thank our table sponsors. Lieutenant Governor Jessica Fairfax. He wanted to be here, but he couldn't be here, but he did sponsor a table. Attorney Joe Marcy. Attorney Joe Massey. Attorney Jeff McDonald. U.S. Senator Mark Warner. Delegate Dolores McQuinn, and John Dixon. Also, I would like to recognize our elected officials here. From the Richmond School Board, we have Chair Don. From Petersburg School Board, we have Lois Long. And from the Hopewell City Council, Brenda Pelham, thank you. And a special thanks to our Crusade for Voters Committee, Bernice Travers, Dolores Murray, Alex Taylor, Linda Gross, Jonathan Davis, Joanne Henry, John Dixon, Nicole Olmstead, and Myra Marcy. The Crusade has a couple of upcoming events. Next Saturday at Abner Clay Park, we're having the voter registration drive and a spring fest with food, activities, voter registration drives, and we hope everybody can come out to Abner Clay Park next Saturday from 12 to 5. And then the Crusade meets each third Tuesday at 7 p.m. at the 533 Club. New members are welcome. Nikki?
Yes, as City Treasurer for Richmond, I want to also acknowledge a fellow treasurer we have from Hopewell, Virginia, Jill Gosier.
Thank you, Nikki, so much. And happy Mother's Day to all the ladies. Thank you, and God bless.